Hello, everyone. Episode 2, New Skin Podcast. I interviewed one of my good friends, Doug Henderson, and we'll get to that here pretty soon. But first of all, I want to thank you for joining me. I want to thank you for putting some faith in listening to this podcast, and I hope that you'll get something out of it. I hope it does some positive things for you. I hope it, like me, I hope it helps you to move forward in different ways and connect to different parts of yourself, maybe some things that you weren't looking at, or some things you're trying to do to manifest and move forward, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for that. Before we get into the interview, I wanted to talk about a couple things in my life that, I have a lot of things that are going on, and I have a lot of new things that are happening, as I think collectively a lot of us do. The pandemic definitely shook up a lot of folks, and I think helped us all to look inward a lot. And when that happens, especially on a mass scale, some shit's gonna be bananas for a while. So in my case, I was very, very tied to my ex-wife, and I was in a relationship for 17 years. Basically right out of high school. I think I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17 and got with my ex-wife when I was 18. So as you may be able to imagine, being like living with people your whole entire life, and being around groups of people in school and all that kind of shit, family, and then being with a spouse for another 17 years, and then all of a sudden not being near anybody is it's going to make for some crazy changes in your life. So it has made for some crazy changes. It's continuously changing me very, very much in some positive ways. Of course, it's all positive in the end of the day, but yeah, it's definitely difficult to get through, and I'm going through a lot of it still. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I'll have more specific videos that I make on different topics, especially like divorce, because I think a lot of people need to hear about what that's like and what to expect. I know I got desperate and looked up a couple different times, like like, what the hell do I do? How do I get through this? How do I get through the isolation? And most of the time it's just, I would just find some forum or something that would be like, you're alone now, get used to it. And you're like, wow, what great information. So anyway, the thing I wanted to get more specifically into today was my whole thing centered around validation. A lot, or I mean, you could refer to it in different ways, like self-love or love from external sources, validation, seeking validation. But I had some things happen to me. I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida once I got divorced, because I didn't want to be in Pennsylvania for many, many years, didn't feel connected to it, and didn't really have any kind of social circle or friends. I pretty much just had this safety blanket that was my wife, and then I didn't. So as you can already tell, like, that's a good thing, because that sucks. I had built this entire life and safety mechanism thing around everything's going to be okay because I have my wife and she cares about me. Well, what if she doesn't care about you anymore? Oh shit. So, all right, where was I? So we're talking about validation and seeking that out, and everything was okay because I had this wife, and then it wasn't. So I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida. Didn't know anybody in Florida. I had one acquaintance that I kind of had talked to, but I didn't know anybody, and I needed that abrupt change. I needed something that was really going to just completely change everything for me, instead of meddling around in the place where I grew up and trying to make things happen there. So something happened when I got here, and I started recognizing patterns, these manifesting patterns I'd continuously brought about in my life, where I was seeking out validation in myself and validation from others, and not finding it, and picking up on these patterns, and it became kind of toxic, and it's hard to kind of break down. But the reason I want to break it down is because, especially in the age of the internet, and people posting things all the time, and people sharing pictures of themselves with fucking filters on and all this, there's so many people that are trying to seek out approval of others, and some kind of validation, or some kind of, you look good today, oh my god, and all this stuff. And it's just it's really sickening and it really sucks. And for the longest time, I didn't really want to do stuff like that on the internet, and I wanted to hide behind my music, and I covered my face. I did videos where I was shielding my face because of using the dark, and I just a lot of the stuff because I just didn't want to take part in the big charade of. I'm not somebody that necessarily wants to be looked at necessarily, so it gets complicated. But anyway, there was still ways I was manifesting these validation things. I found out that there's a thread over and over again, not only with even my wife's loving support or anything like that, where I was continuously making situations in my life where I was not being seen, I was not being valued for what I do or who I am or my talents. And it just continued to play on and on like that for God knows however many years now, and it still does. But thankfully, awareness is everything. And having that awareness now, I can sort of reorient and notice when I'm doing things like that or notice what's happening with it. So when it comes to music, it's a big thing with music because that's what I care about most and have cared about most, but I've never really gotten anywhere with music and always felt like, oh, I got this, I'm going to do this, I believe in myself and all this, and then continuously hit walls where I just wasn't breaking through or wasn't being recognized or wasn't, seen. And that could be due to a lot of things. And a lot of people would have rebuttals to that immediately and be like, maybe you're just not good enough, or maybe your fucking voice sucks, or whatever anybody would want to say. But it's not what we're doing here, God damn it. Yeah. So when I got to Florida, it was funny because I fell into a relationship very fast. This is a very common thing in divorce. And I had thought that this person that I was seeing was actually seeing the real me, and I was actually validated on those levels that I needed. And the universe was tricking me and took that away very quickly and just fucking destroyed me. And I know why now, and it was because of the lesson therein, which was that pain that I went through and that fallout from that was so profound and so powerful that I got to trace the entire line back to when this whole thing started with problems with validation and not being seen. And sadly enough, it's a similar story to most people, or one that makes people go, oh no, your parents got divorced, that's sad. In my case, my parents got divorced when I was about 11, and then they had some different people that they dated and things like that. And then I got kind of carted around to different houses and a couple different schools. And the difference between trying to figure out if you want to be with your mother or live with your father, and that whole struggle where, one's trying to make the other out to be the enemy and shit. And it was really toxic and terrible. But throughout all of those years and the changes that they made and the decisions they made, I did not feel seen, and I did not feel loved or validated. I didn't feel like I was important enough for them to involve their decision making through changing schools or going to this house. It was more about their relationships and their struggles, and I was just kind of along for the ride. So that has affected my entire life. And whereas a lot of people might have way more difficult problems, of course, I was a highly sensitive kid and I didn't know that. And a lot of times when somebody maybe on an autistic spectrum or high sensitivity or dealing with things like that is taken care of, they're doing very, very well because they have exactly what they need. But if you take that away, it can be completely the opposite and very, very harsh. And once again, I didn't know I was going through those things, but God damn it, I was. So going back, yeah, recognizing that I hadn't been seen, I hadn't been feeling validated or important, I have continuously manifested situation after situation where I ended up somewhere and I was like, how the hell am I here? This doesn't make any sense. Nobody around me is anything like me. This doesn't make any sense. And yeah, so now the funny thing about this, and one of the reasons I brought it up, is because I am in a place now where I recognize these things and I see these things, but I'm not exactly sure how to move forward or how to change. If anybody has gone through something like this and wants to share their story, I'm very happy to hear about it. I know in some ways, obviously, it would be, figure out more ways to love yourself, figure out more ways to tell yourself that you're this, or look at your work that you've done and recognize that you're really talented or amazing or whatever. But I come from a humble household and I'm a very humble person. And even the thought of trying to tell myself, hey man, you're really great. Do you know how great you are? Look at you. Look how great you are. We didn't do things like that growing up. Those things feel very icky and strange to me. And I don't know where the middle line is. The middle line of appreciating oneself and loving oneself without literally looking in the mirror and trying to be like, I love you, man. You're great. So it's a strange life. It's a strange world. And without going on any farther, like I said, if you have stories like this, I would love to hear about them. That is the reason I'm doing this. The reason, once again, we're doing this is that I want to be able to share these stories and hear other people's stories of perseverance, growing up and struggling with difficulty, struggling with being different, struggling with feeling completely unique or alien in your surroundings, and how you moved through it and how you've navigated through it and how it's changed you. And things like I said today, recognizing that for the past God knows how many years I have been creating situations over and over again based on that small kind of thing, that small detail. Parents got divorced, didn't feel loved, didn't feel important, changed the rest of my life. Oh my God. So without further ado, I interviewed my friend Doug Henderson. He is a filmmaker, a director, writer, generally a motivating and inspiring person that I am very happy to know. He did my Vegas Nerve video. I'm in a band called Vegas Nerve, or was in a band. You know, we're still going to do some stuff. Either way, they did a great job. Him and his partner Matt Neese owned a film company now for a long time, and they've made a couple films. They're going to be making more. I'm going to be scoring a film for him. A lot of exciting stuff like that. But anyway, I don't have the, how do I say it? I don't have enough people like Doug in my life that are just these creative forces that are doing awesome, inspiring things. And I'm really happy that I know this person. Every time we get on the phone, which isn't very often, we tend to just talk about everything. We tend to just be like, this is a person I can completely be open and honest about fucking anything with. If you're depressed, if you're happy, if you have something to celebrate, it's somebody that has the true friendship in their heart, and I'm really happy to know this person. So I also want to thank him for sharing his story. As you probably already guessed, we talk about childhood, growing up, so a lot of difficulties like that, and I want to thank him for braving that and sharing his story. While I'm able to come on here and talk about the things I'm talking about and just be completely open and honest about, you know, difficult shit, I have to recognize repeatedly that not everybody is always that open to doing these types of things. And sometimes I think in a little bit in Doug's case, he did this and then he was like, oh my God, I said too much. I shouldn't have said that. And it's like, no, man, it was beautiful. It was such a wonderful expression. And it was such a wonderful thing to share, because you got to remember, everybody's on a spectrum everywhere all the time. There's balance going on all over the place. And doing things like this sometimes gives a voice to people that don't have that, or maybe don't have the capacity to articulate their thoughts and their feelings, and you are giving them a voice. Just by them hearing it, it helps them to connect dots and put pieces together and recognize patterns. And me saying, oh my God, my entire life was kind of fucked up for a long, long time because my parents got divorced. Somebody might just go back in their past and be like, oh my God, and connect those things. That's amazing. And it was just because somebody came on, you know, the internet and was like, hey, guess what? So I'll get to my interview with Doug here. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will talk to everybody soon. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for joining me, Doug Henderson. I've known you for quite a while now. We've had some epic conversations, but never dove too deep into different things. And as you know, on this podcast, I like to talk to people about growing up and what turned them into who they are, and some of the difficult bullshit they dealt with growing up. You know, I'm a big biography fan. You know, I like to hear what really made somebody who they are, and how they persevered, and how they stumbled, and what they learned when they stumbled, and how they failed, and all those kinds of things. So first of all, once again, thank you for agreeing to do this, especially being my second guest. And, you know, this could all go off the rails and it could be terrible. And I could just say the wrong things and it could be like, I should have never been a part of that.
Well, knowing what I know about you and the makeup of your humanity, I have no doubt this podcast will find inevitable success, and I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you for creating a forum for people to talk about and listen to stories that they can relate to. Hopefully,
Yeah.
I think this is a wonderful thing you're doing. I'm very excited for this.
Oh, thanks, man. So, you were born, I know that you're pretty much tied to York, Pennsylvania, because that's where I came from, and I was tied to that place for a long time. Not always because I wanted to be, but did you end up in York, Pennsylvania, or were you somebody that grew up around there, or?
Super random. No, I was born in Maryland,
Oh, okay.
Gaithersburg, Maryland. I lived in Frederick for the first few years of my life.
Mhm.
And I grew up near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which
Okay.
is
Were you,
30 minutes north of here.
were you somebody that grew up in city or kind of rural type places?
Suburbs, baby.
All right. Were you a fan of that? Or are you still a fan of that? Or are you somebody that craves kind of more of the city, I can walk everywhere lifestyle?
Um, I'm enjoying my time living in the city. I live in the city now. I've lived all kinds of places.
Yeah.
I think I think variety is the spice of life.
Well,
Although I will say, at 3 o'clock in the morning, when somebody's outside on the square screaming at their girlfriend or whatever, sometimes I long for the quiet of the suburbs.
the variety and the spice tend to go downhill a little bit. All right, that's something I'm always interested to hear. A lot of times people think the grass is greener, that they grew up in the middle of nowhere and they're like, I just want to move to the big city to find what it's all about. And I've never been that way. I've gone to the city and been like, I can't breathe, and then wanted to go right back to where there's trees and shit like that.
I've never been more uncomfortable than when I'm driving in New York City, which is unfortunately something I have to do on occasion.
Yeah.
I work in the film industry, so I had to drive a 17-foot box truck through New York City once. It was awful. I literally still have nightmares about it.
Yeah, that kind of makes me want to die. So I met you because of the film industry stuff and your ties to video and video production, and you actually reached out to me a long time ago because you somehow found me as a musician and were questioning me about if we could work together and make like a music video and stuff. And then I looked up your work and was really amazed and surprised because once again, I don't give enough credit to York County where I grew up, and I was always just kind of etching to leave. And then when people like you come along, I was like, hey, this place ain't so bad. So, could you tell people really quick, like how you found me and how we kind of connected,
Um,
if you remember?
sure. I mean, I think it was early. It was early in my film career. We'd
Yeah.
maybe just kind of formed our company, and no one in their right mind would hire us. And um, I briefly worked in the music industry before I got into film. I've always kind of been drawn to it. And I scoured, what's the
I kind of remember. Yeah.
Reverb Nation. I
Yeah.
scoured Reverb Nation for somebody that was making music that I was inspired by, right? Like that I felt like I could like get behind creatively and wanted to create something. Because we had some equipment and we were prepared to work for free, and I just wanted to make something that I could like stamp my name on and like be like, yeah, I'm proud of this. And I found your music and immediately reached out to you. And to my utter shock and surprise, you for some reason agreed to do something together. So that was great.
Yeah, that whole thing was a light in the dark for me, man. To have anybody reach out and support and want to do anything for me was absolutely amazing. So that changed some parts of my life. So thank you to you, sir. We'll jump into some of the crazier emotional shit that I usually get into, and as we already talked about a little bit before this started, I don't want to push too far into directions that anybody's uncomfortable with, but that tends to be what I do. People tend to tell me people tend to tell me their life story, and I've gotten used to that, and I like chasing that that line and be like, then what happened? Then what happened? So I'm assuming you were born Doug Henderson, Douglas Henderson. Am I
Douglas
guessing?
Dalby Henderson.
Oh, what's the middle name?
Dalby.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dalby.
Awesome. I love anything that's different. And so you were born in Maryland. You had typical mother and father kind of situation growing up, or did you have another situation?
Yeah, no. Well, we moved to Pennsylvania. My biological father, shortly after I was born, I think, got his degree from Howard
Mhm.
in law and couldn't pass the bar
Ugh.
in Maryland or Virginia, but he came up to Pennsylvania and took the test and he passed. Legend has it that he had a water bottle full of vodka with him while he took the test in Pennsylvania, which is why he passed.
That is very strange. That's awesome.
So we moved up here. We bought this great house and moved in. It was awesome. And then one of my earliest memories was being woken up 10 days before my 4th birthday by a family friend who literally, as my eyes were cracking open, I still see her face telling me that my dad had died.
Christ.
I don't even recall knowing that he was sick, but he had cancer really bad, and it was in remission, and then it came back and metastasized. It was everywhere, and it was inoperable. There was nothing they were going to be able to do. So,
what was his name?
Robert. He went
Robert.
by Bob Henderson.
Well, that's some heavy stuff. As I've told a couple people, and I've told you this, I tend to get along with people that had fathers pass away or had fathers that weren't very strong influences in their life. And that doesn't mean that you didn't have, yet another strong influence in your life. But I always find it interesting for my sake, because I guess that I'm more of a feminine person and I have no idea. It's always just an interesting thing to me. But I'm really sorry to hear that. Being 4 years old, I'm sure that there was a lot of strange trying to process that. Or do you remember kind of becoming conscious kind of quickly of life and everything? Or were you still kind of able to be a child and enjoy yourself? And it just, I know there's a lot to unpack there, I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't know that. I don't know what led to the idea that I had depression.
Okay.
But I was pretty quickly introduced to a therapist at a very young age.
So that was probably like a parental guidance kind of thing. Like, here, he needs to.
Yeah.
Right.
My mom was grieving too, and I had a younger brother.
Right.
And, at one point I found a letter that I wrote in elementary school, talking about how my dad was my best friend and now he's not here anymore, and that nobody understood that. None of the other kids understood that. They all had mommies and daddies.
Yeah.
And like Father's Day and like all that stuff. Look, it's hard, but I had an incredible mom,
Right.
like a truly wonderful angel of a mother. Don't get me wrong, like as I got older, she definitely pissed me off a little bit. But
Right.
but she tells a story of our neighbor, shortly after my dad died, telling me that I was now the man of the house at 4 years old. And my mom shut that shit down real quick.
Yeah, that seems kind of unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my mom she worked incredibly hard. She worked in upper management for a big time insurance company. She was in product development. She worked incredibly hard, and she never missed a baseball game. We were never late to baseball practice. She spoiled me and my brother absolutely rotten. And she did everything in her power to make sure that we were okay, that we were dealing with things. And I'm really grateful for her. I still think to this day, I still have episodes where I get really emotional about my dad, although that's kind of changing a little bit. I don't think that scar ever leaves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can't think of anything that my mom should have done for me in my grieving process as a child that she didn't do. She was on top of it and she made it a priority, which is amazing because I mean, I can't even imagine the pain that she was experiencing too, and the pressure of raising two small children on her own. Like,
Yeah. How old was your brother?
he's 15 months younger than me, so he would have been 2 when my dad died.
Okay. Yeah, I never really knew about your brother. What's his name?
His name's Jeff.
Ah,
Great guy. He's got my whole heart. I love that kid. He's not even
that's
now. What's wrong with me? I love that kid a lot. I talked to him just before I got on here, actually.
yeah. That's amazing, man. So yeah, I guess a lot of times there's a dichotomy between parents that are just gonna fall to pieces and then everything falls to fucking pieces, and then there's the parent that picks up the reins and really continues to move forward and just makes it their absolute, everything to kind of fix the wrongs and to make everything as right as they can. Um this is kind of moving forward and it's kind of a heavy question as well, but were there times as you were kind of growing up where you could see problematic things that were in your, I don't know how to exactly word this, were there times when you were growing up where you were able to kind of see the ramifications of your father's passing in your mother's behavior? Were there times where it kind of started to slip where you were like, oh, she's she is dealing with this, or that's still in there, you know what I'm saying? Or do you think that she's somebody that was able to kind of process it and move forward and just carry the fucking torch and just be like, I'm mom of the year and I got this?
My mom is the single strongest human being that I've ever met or will ever meet in my life.
Right.
So no, I mean, look, she would cry with us.
Right.
And she was obviously, she didn't hide her feelings from us, but never in a million years would she make her problems our problems.
Wow.
And like when I was eight-ish years old, a doctor told her that she had 2 years to live. She was diagnosed with this like rare cancer, and she never even told us.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that until like maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
And I hear stories about people like this and it just blows my mind. I feel like it makes me feel like a big puss too, because I feel like if I like hurt my hand, that everybody that I come in contact that day is going to know that my hand hurts.
I have a headache.
Yeah, I hurt my hand and today it's not good. So those things are amazing to hear. And like I said, I've heard other stories about that. And those things are just incredible.
She very well may. I'm sure she had her group of friends and people that she talked to, she confided in, and obviously she was participating in therapy as well. And I like she was dealing with those things. She wasn't just shoving it down, but like we're her kids and we're young and like we're dealing with our own shit and like shit that like 4, 5, 6-year-old kids should not have to deal with. Like it's nobody's ideal choice. And like she shouldered it. Like she really did. I had no idea how sick she was until I was probably 14 or 15 years old.
Wow. So it was something that just kind of hung on for a while. I'll tell you real quick why I kind of brought that up. And I brought it up in the first episode that I was talking to my friend Rich. I think it's kind of an interesting thing to get into and tap into in our culture, especially now where people are so open to, mental health issues and depression and things like that. Whereas when we grew up, that really wasn't a big thing. And it became a big thing for teenagers, obviously, like here, take Ritalin, take this, take this, take this. But of course, our parents growing up there was none of that shit. There was no time to be depressed or anything like that. But I've definitely found out now as I've gotten older that my mother is somebody that deals with depression and deals with issues like that. And it's funny to try to look at your parents and process those things and recognize those patterns of behavior. Does that make sense? And actually be like, oh, they're dealing with depression, and not just see them as your parents. They don't deal with that shit. They're strong. They're parents. They handle everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
It's still weird to me now.
Your parents are the ones who are your guides through the world, right? So their perspective, their point of view, the way they approach things becomes your compass as you're growing up.
Yeah.
And they, I think parents often assume godlike status in the child's mind.
Yeah.
And when that illusion is inevitably and probably harshly shattered, it can be very jarring.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're human beings. They struggle. They're far from perfect. But yeah, no, I think that's a common way of perceiving things through much of childhood.
Yeah, it's a disillusioned state to think that they don't deal with these things. But I think in some ways it's actually a kind of a positive in my case, because it's brought me a little bit closer to my mother and helped me to see it from things from her perspective and her from mine. And fathers, it's even weirder with fathers because they tend to just be, very well, in my case, very masculine men, and they just there's just none of that shit popping up. But I'm sure my dad deals with his stuff too. Anyway, so I know that there was another man that came in the picture. What age did that happen?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it was shortly after my mom was diagnosed with her illness, because I've heard the story that he was there to kind of help her through that. He was like, he was the Cub Scout leader, and he had 2 kids that were about the same age. One of them was in my grade, and he was more popular than me. So I was like, yeah, let's be friends.
All right. So he had 2 other children. Are you still close with him now?
Yeah, well, not really, not as much as I'd like. He actually had 3 kids. He also had an older daughter.
Wow.
Who's,
Okay.
I think 8 years older than me. She would hate me for saying that on here. Geez, sorry, Stacy.
Not everybody's going to get this. Not everybody's going to watch this, but yeah, sorry, Stacy.
I'm close with her still. The pandemic's been hard on a lot of relationships. But she played a huge role in, I don't want to say raising me. I feel like that's maybe a little bit too much responsibility for somebody who was 18 years old. But she was a big influence on me growing up and gave me a lot of perspective that I feel like, unless you have an older sister who's like sneaking out and getting drunk or whatever, and then relaying those stories back to you, you don't get to hear that stuff. And she really championed a lot of the things about me that I was, getting picked on at school for. She really embraced and made it feel cool to kind of be open with your emotions and be sensitive, and she celebrated kindness. Like, she was really ahead of the curve on some of those things. So I'm really grateful for her being in my life.
That's amazing. So you think that you might kind of get some of those things from her. Those are some of the things that I admire in you so much, and admire in, most people, is just the ability to be empathic or empathetic and sensitive to others' needs. And just, I'm a big sensitive puss, as you know, and I think we share a little bit of that.
I think I wouldn't put it in any derogatory context. I think being vulnerable, like me even saying to you, Ravi, that like I appreciate you, and that I like you, my acknowledgement of you and your acknowledgement of me is actually a vulnerable act that a lot of people aren't willing to do.
Yeah, I don't hear those things very much from people, and sometimes they get me all gooey and teary inside. So I like hearing.
I think it was probably always that way. I don't think she like formed me into that, but I do think that she played a role in making sure that I didn't like grab a different direction. Because you have a lot of like very traditionally masculine influences when you're in middle school and high school.
Yeah.
And they're reinforcing that you should change who you are and change how you should be. I don't know how things are now. I have a feeling that things are loosening up on that, but when I was in high school, I was ruthlessly made fun of on occasion. And like looking back, by the way, like I felt like I was ruthlessly made fun of.
Right.
I really think that was just like, that's how kids talk to each other. And I was like totally injured by it. And they're like, it's how we talk to everybody. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I had a very difficult high school experience, and you jumping into that makes me, very interested to hear. First of all, you're somebody that I feel like towers over top of me. You're 6'4", very tall dude. Were you somebody that was always kind of like that, or was there a time where you just fucking went from, kind of kid to, oh my God, I can't imagine now what I know of you being somebody that wouldn't get made fun of without, yeah.
Well, yeah, I've always been taller than everyone,
Right.
almost everyone. But I've also always been insecure about that, and that's actually something that I'm like only very recently coming to terms with. I'm like trying to find explanations for.
Right.
Like I, for my whole life, didn't want to be perceived as a threat.
Yeah,
Or
we
like,
talked about this a little bit. I think it's really an interesting concept.
so I'm a non-violent person.
Yeah.
There are a couple people who would testify to the opposite of that, because if I get pushed, I will defend myself. But um, I'm not. I've tried really hard. I think subconsciously throughout my life to kind of like guard against that perception. I've I've tried to always make everybody comfortable. That's a very important theme in my life. I don't like the idea that somebody who randomly is walking on the sidewalk that sees me, if I'm posturing the wrong way, or I have my hands in my pockets, or I got a resting bitch face happening, like, you can see it too. Like you can see it like that in their eyes, in their actions. They'll close off, they'll move far away. It's like, it's so hard for me to, it's been really difficult for me to come to grips with that. And by the way, in high school, everybody knew I wasn't gonna do anything.
Oh, interesting.
So I didn't get like physically bullied. There was only a couple times. And by the way, like I also bullied people because high school is weird and you do stupid things to try to get attention, and like you're so desperate to climb the social ranks, right? Like I regret so much of that, but
yeah.
I don't blame any of them. I just think everybody is lost and trying to figure it out. And when you find something that works for you, you kind of latch onto it, and that becomes the thing that you kind of identify with.
Yeah.
That helps you get through it.
Yeah, the bullying, the whole paradigm around that is very confusing to me still, and I've railed against the systems that we're trying to be put in place for all that kind of stuff, because it does seem to be an inevitable part of nature that is going to happen, and I think a lot of times when you try to repress something like that or oppress something like that, it's only going to make it that much more exciting and that much more worth it when they get to do it, and when they get to, the thing I usually reference is the fact that my stepmother tried to keep her children away from guns and violence growing up all the time. They couldn't even watch SpongeBob, which I don't consider to be necessarily very violent. And then when they finally got to see video games and violence, because it had been oppressed so long, it was just that much more, oh, this is amazing. And now they basically shoot guns professionally. So you see that the way that all just translated is a little confusing. But I was somebody that was bullied as well. Are you somebody that went to different schools, or are you just kind of duking out all this different stuff with different groups and cliques and everything within the same school system?
No, I stayed in the same school the whole way through. And like, I really want to make it clear that in hindsight, like at the time, I felt like a social outcast. I felt like people didn't like me. I felt like people were taking every opportunity they could to pick on me, to make fun of me, whatever, for social clout.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, I don't think that was the case. I really don't. I think it was far less malicious. I actually think that I was probably pretty well liked, but my reactions to the little jabs and the little things probably served to alienate me from people a little bit more.
And perhaps helped you alienate yourself and feel alienated and etc.
Yeah. Like, I think like, one of the things that's really important for me is like, I think it's really, really dangerous for a human being to take their pain and ignore it and like stick it over there and not do anything about it. But I also think it's really dangerous for somebody to take their pain and like identify with it and like make that a part of their whole personality and be like, I'm this person who's experienced pain.
Yeah.
Like pain is a part of life and it helps you grow. Like, the best analogy I've heard is like when you stub your toe, it hurts and it teaches you to watch out when you're walking through a dark room, right?
Yeah.
I think emotional pain's the same thing. And what I learned in hindsight, looking back on my school experiences, is most people are unaware of how what they're doing makes you feel or makes like they're not doing this to make you feel small or feel like shit. This is just how they have learned to communicate.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking a different language most of the time, but when confronted, and I found this to be extremely true, when confronted with like, hey man, I don't really like it when you talk to me like that, kind of like fucks me up a little bit. Can we try a different method? They're almost always willing to do it. I was too eager at that time in my life to identify with that pain. And whenever it came up, however it came up, I was super excited to grab it and be like, that's the reason why I'm sad. Like that's all the things. And I put the blame outward instead of taking responsibility for my own healing, which it's taken me over 30 years to take responsibility for my own healing.
Yeah, that role of being a victim or feeling like a victim is very, very difficult to get over sometimes. And there's definitely things that I've learned in terms of spiritual practices or heard of or tried to implement into my life that sometimes make me feel better, and then sometimes I rail back against because I feel so lost or stuck. And essentially, some of them are just that you can choose to play the victim thing or you can choose to feel empowered. And it's literally that simple, in that you can continue to go down this road where you constantly are looking for ways out and ways to not blame yourself and ways to blame this or ways to say I was sick because, and then this happened or that, or there's ways to continue to try to take the reins and just feel empowered. And it's a hard wrestle back and forth sometimes, but I do know that especially where I am in my life now, that victimization thing and that whole mindset just really sucks. It really you can really let it get away from you and just continue to go down that rabbit hole for a long time and get lost in it. So
yeah, and like look, there's like people are victims of shit. Like look no further. Like the people, and I'm not going to make you identify who they are, but like from a political standpoint, the people that you see as the oppressor, you in the audience, you watching this, the people that you see as the oppressor, if you put a gun to their head and said, who's making you a victim, they got a whole list. It's very easy. Everybody suffers. Like pain is a part of life. And like, I'm not talking about people that are victimized by like brutal crimes, of course, and things like that. That's a whole nother bag of worms. And I've gone through that too. Like that's a whole nother thing. Please find professional help or find your path towards healing. But like at the end of the day, the only way you're going to heal is if you decide you want to. And like the person who inflicted that pain is not able to heal that pain. They can't. You're the only one who can. And I remember sitting down with a shrink who, after a few sessions of me going through my stuff, said, you know what, Doug, I think you'll start to get better about the time you decide you want to. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, he just called me out on that. And I thought about it. And I'm like, you know what? There's truth in what he's saying, because there's a part of me from a young age, experiencing tragedy at a very young age, that's like, this is my identity. I'm the cursed person who like everything bad happens to. And when you identify that way, you start attracting some really bad shit, because like that's what makes you happy in a really fucked up weird way. Like the bad shit is something to complain about, something that I can be a victim of. Like, here's my identity. I can write a whole fucking social media post about this. I was dangerously close to going down that rabbit hole. And it's something that I have to monitor in myself.
Yeah.
Because the reinforcement I got at a young age, with my dad dying, was like, if I'm sad, I'm getting all kinds of attention.
Wow.
And it's nobody's fault. It's just
these are important environmental factors that help shape people and change people. And thank God you can come to realize those things and be like, oh my God, I identified with sadness and depression, and those are the things in high school and stuff that I felt connected me most to who I was. Those are the times where I felt the most like myself, when I was alone and sad and all fucked up. Those were the times where I felt like the most me, and that's a frightening place to get into. But it's probably why I connected with music and stuff more, because I felt at home in those spaces as well, or at least whatever. But yeah, that's those are powerful revelatory type things. And
look at the beauty that your pain has created. Like, I listen to your music and like I get chills sometimes.
Yeah.
There's always a way to turn a negative thing into a positive thing. There's always a way.
Yeah.
You just have to be willing to do the thing.
And that's a little bit of the victim and the empowerment thing, is trying to figure out a way to possibly take your suffering. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. I'm trying to become even more empowered with my situation, with other people's situations, and figure out how I can spread that and talk to more people. You looking for more of those ales?
This thing. I found it. Sorry, I was listening the whole time.
Oh, no, it's all good. So your school experience was I was interested I want to get into it a little bit later, because I know we talked about it before, but it's also so interesting. I don't want to forget about it. And you're also kind of going through it now, so it might not provide the best, conversation, but as a bigger human being, you're constantly aware of at least how you think people are perceiving you. And this is something I kind of suffer from all the time as a very sensitive person, where I can constantly tell how people are perceiving me, how people are looking at me, how people react to me, everything. And it fucks a lot of stuff up. And I know in my marriage I was in, a lot of times I would say something about a waitress or something like that, and then my ex-wife would be like, she didn't say that. She doesn't not like you or anything. And I always knew what was going on, because I could read all the signs. I don't know. I want you to talk a little bit more at length about what your perceptions are with that lately, and where you've kind of arrived and what you've come to. I know that you're a sensitive person, and that you're paying attention to the way you affect people and all that kind of stuff. But where did it kind of stem from? Where did it kind of really start to kick in, where you're like, oh, I'm doing this, and I didn't realize it was kind of a problem, or that it was something that needed to be solved within your psyche?
I think what it really stems from, like where it actually comes from, is a neediness. Like,
right.
I grew up in an environment where I didn't have my dad. And right. I think subconsciously throughout childhood, I was trying to replace that relationship. And I became very keyed in on, does this person like me? Does this person not like me?
Right.
And I think that the hypervigilance kind of came to light after I was robbed at gunpoint while managing a Staples in Largo, Maryland. And I crumbled. I think the real reason why that happened, I was unhappy in retrospect, with how I handled the situation, because I obviously safely handled it. I wasn't shot. The assailants did not get the money, which I'm incredibly proud of.
I saw that wash over.
No one was hurt, so it's like the best possible outcome.
Right.
However, when I called the police, The guy was still locked in the store. It was after it closed. And I called the police, and they asked me, is anybody else in the store?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time in the whole encounter that it even occurred to me that I had 2 employees in that store.
Right.
And they had no idea what was going on. They were out like straightening up aisles and putting returns back and all that stuff.
Right.
And I, like, that moment, I'll never forget it. Like, my legs gave out. I literally crumbled to my knees on the phone. And I was so terrified that one of them would get hurt.
Right.
And I think through the process of trying to heal from that trauma, which took a while, I struggled with a lot of PTSD symptoms, insomnia, a lot of issues for about 1.5 to 2 years. But I think that's really when my hypervigilance kind of kicked in. I was very distrusting of everyone, and I needed to kind of even further tune in those, like, my perception of those social cues. So like, it's to the point now where, like, if somebody is standing this close to me yesterday and today they're standing this close to me, I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I think it'll always just be a part of my neurosis. But I just have to control and, like, understand that, like, not everybody is speaking in codes. Not everybody is sending subliminal messages. Not everybody is thinking about which way their feet are pointing or where the closest exit is.
Right.
You know, I think it's just a part of my life now, and I've learned to deal with it. I'm a very happy individual. There's certain little invisible characteristics to my personality that most people don't pick up on at all, that help me kind of deal with those things.
So you've kind of told me before that you identify, or at least on paper identify, as an introverted extrovert. And I've seen your extroversion skills, if that's a word. I've seen you interact with other people. You're very professional and very well-spoken and very able to, handle yourself well, and, all that stuff. And obviously directing films and directing people around and stuff, you're able to grab onto all that stuff and do it very, very well. Where the hell was I going with this? Do you think that that sometimes that getting in that skin, getting in that extroversion kind of mode comes from your practices of seeking validation? Does this make sense where I'm going with this? The constant trying to make people happy or being sensitive to other people. Do you think that sometimes that extroversion, being an introverted extrovert, essentially is saying that you're an introverted person, to me, this is the way I'm understanding it, that is able to kind of jump into this realm of extroversion and then kind of get back out of it. And I'm kind of wondering, do you think that that's kind of a mechanism that you built that you could kind of get into out of the validation and things like that you went through? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it's the opposite. I think I'm naturally extroverted. If I turn my brain off and I don't think about anything, like, I can turn into not 100%. Let's say I can turn into 75% Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec.
Okay. You're a social butterfly. Okay. That's amazing.
But, like, the introverted part of me, like, I think that comes from the sadness. Like, originally it came from the sadness.
Right.
And
like a protection kind of thing.
Yeah, wanting to withdraw and get away from anything that might hurt me. And like, as I got older, it turned into, like, a beautiful time for reflection and to kind of intellectualize situations I find myself in, or the feelings that I'm having, or whatever it is. I think I'm most happy when I'm in a small group and able to really get to know the people that I'm interacting with. Like, I'm constantly seeking connections with people, and I'm most happy when I'm in a situation that fosters that. But also, there comes a time where I just I am too overwhelmed, and I know like I need to on purpose take a step back from that and like rebalance all the scales and make sure that like I'm not putting too much out there and losing myself in the process.
Tell me about your rebalance process. This is something that I still am not good at in myself. It used to involve escapism with drinking and things like that. Do you have things that you know will help you to recalibrate? If you're listening to the audio of this, you just held up a drink. But do you have something that you know or that you matter of factly know helps you to recharge your batteries?
That's a good question. I think it would be really beneficial for me to kind of document that process. But I think it's a little bit different every time. I've started journaling this year, which has been enormously helpful. Like I've had people tell me like, journal, Doug, it'll help you. And I'm like, yeah, fuck you. I'm not.
It never sounds good when you hear it. It always sounds like, well, just get your little book and write your feelings down. But it is much more powerful than it sounds. Yeah.
It's incredible. But like a million people that just watch this went like, I'm fucking done. He's going to talk about journaling.
Yeah. You're going to tell me what kind of journal to get? Does it have to have a certain kind of paper? Yeah. So that's something that's helped you to recalibrate or at least learn about the recalibration thing.
Here's the thing. I didn't do this for like 10 years.
Okay.
I didn't do it for a really long time. I started my business. I'm like, I am going to make movies. I'm going to figure out this film industry thing. I have big goals. I have big dreams. I have a vision. I have work ethic. I'm going to do this thing. And like literally the only vacation I took over those 10 years was I went to the Outer Banks, and it was supposed to be for like 4 or 5 days. And I left 2 days in because I had to come back because I had to work on this.
Yeah, this very much mirrors my life as well. Yes.
Man.
So so in a sense, you're dealing with the constant barrage of being overwhelmed and maybe not even noticing or identifying with the fact that you were overwhelmed. And now you kind of recognize it and go, oh shit, I got to get away and kind of recharge. Does that make sense? Or
the world would force me to get away from everybody. Like I would get really sick, or depression would just be crippling me, or anxiety would cripple me, and I would just need to disappear for a couple days just to recover. And like I wasn't doing anything. I didn't recognize that that's what was happening.
Yeah. But you were essentially manifesting situations so that you could escape.
Exactly. Yeah. Or situations were manifesting for me.
Yeah.
So that I could, to enable that process to kind of take place to some degree, just to recharge the batteries just a little bit.
Yeah.
And recently I mean, we're jumping ahead quite a bit, but that's okay.
Yeah. It's all good.
I took 2 weeks after my mom died, and after my relationship ended.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned off my phone. I turned off my computer. I turned off my internet. I locked myself in my apartment, and I told everybody, don't try to reach me. If there's an emergency, call my business partner, Matt Neese. He has the keys to get into this building, and he can bang on my door if there's an absolute emergency. But I told Matt, you're my filter. Don't bring any bullshit to my door.
Right.
For real, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And I had to. I mean, I emerged from that staycation a completely different person. I think maybe at least I feel like a totally different person.
So you had mentioned we had some conversations before over the phone about kind of a desire to do something like that, but with more of a positive spin, like I'm going to go somewhere and do this and stuff. So was this before or after that and you just decided to do it at your house?
No, that's what, I was hoping
to be able to do it.
I was nominated to win a grant, an artist grant here in New York. And if I won that, I was going to basically pack up my shit and just drive somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, you told me about that. Yeah.
All I wanted to do, look, I felt the very, very, very sincere need and drive within me to escape, just to distance myself from all the things that were negatively impacting me, and just to get away. The situation was not good. There was a lot of things going on, and I needed to get away so that I could start dealing with those things and figuring them out for me without having more shit thrown on the pile. And I didn't win that grant, obviously, but I knew I needed to do something. And so that was the best that I could do. I fucking locked my door. Nobody talked to me for 2 weeks.
And so it's obviously very personal, and you can decline to kind of answer. You might be able to dance around it a little bit, but no big deal either way. Did you come away from that experience with any kind of revelatory thing, you know, possibly about self-love or anything like that, where you could share, like, you know, or were you just, I need to really embrace myself, I need to fucking just cry for, you know, 8 days straight, you know? Is there anything that you can share about that experience? Because a lot of people obviously crave that experience, but they're very afraid to do it, you know?
Yeah, well, I'd imagine, I think everybody should do it. And then once you do it, make a point of giving yourself a vacation every so often, even if it's a long weekend, when you feel you need to. Like, that's what I'm doing now. That's called self-care.
So that was one of the experience. One of the learning things was, oh my God, I never do this, and I need to do this and need to tap in.
Yeah, no, it's I don't think that the importance of self-care can be overstated. I mean, I emerged from that determined to change my lifestyle, determined to change my diet, determined to start exercising, determined to practice self-love, like absolutely determined to change the course of my business. Like, part of it is just shutting off the fucking faucet for a minute.
Right.
Like, part of it's just that. And then, you know, part of it is going inside and just, like, for me, I got really, really honest with myself. I asked myself questions, and then when I answered them, I said, what if that's not true? What is, like, go deeper. Like, what's going on here? Why are you not functioning at your ideal level? Why are you not having your ideal life right now?
Yeah. Even when it came to your body type, and even when it came to things like that, you were asking those difficult questions.
Yeah, I got right down to everything. Anything I explored my mind from day to night.
Yeah.
And anything that came up that I saw as a pain point for me, I paused, I wrote about it, thought about it. Like, I looked up things to read about it. I had my podcast app and my Audible, and I'm sitting there listening to books and learning everything that I can. And I think, look, at the end of the day, this is my life, and I'm responsible for it, right? And I'm unhappy. I'm beyond unhappy. I'm suicidal at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? How do I keep ending up back here? Why does this keep happening? And I can't control these external factors. It's like, no, but it's your job to dictate your response. Like, why are you responding this way? Get to the fucking root of these problems. I was my own therapist, and I was really, really hard on myself, and I wouldn't accept any of my bullshit. My superpower, if you don't know, is I'm convincing as fuck.
Okay. I believe you.
I'm great at, you believe me? Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I truly think I have a gift for convincing myself of something, and then once I'm convinced of it, good luck anybody who's got a different idea. I'm gonna fucking put you in the dirt. Like, I'm really good at it. But I'm like, sometimes it's bullshit. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes I've convinced myself of some bullshit, and I had to unpack that stuff.
It's a
And it took some
double-edged,
time, and I'm still
double-edged.
doing it.
Yeah.
I'm still doing
Was
it.
there, I know you kind of already answered this, but was there a simple kind of takeaway recurring theme that kept popping up when you were journaling about it, when you were writing about it? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I like,
this is personal shit. So you don't have to, you don't have to tap into all of it.
dude, no. I'm total. By the way, like, I'm fine going there. Like, I have no problem talking about this stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna do the greatest job putting words to it because it's still forming. Like right now, I'm kind of in a season of settling into a new set of ideals, and like I'm still working towards creating the habits that I want to have and the behaviors that I want to have and the beliefs that I want to have, and like identifying what those things are and like really understanding them. So I'm still kind of in the formation process right now. But I think what it really came down to is like I was not loving myself. And like that's sounds, some people just clicked off the podcast again.
No, I just got emotional. It's amazing how a simple sentence like that, how many of us are struggling with that. And I don't
I
want to,
wasn't.
yeah.
And like, by the way, I was putting I was externalizing that in my relationships with other people, with my friends, with my family, with my female companions. I was, love me so I can love myself, right? Like, fuck, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And like, of course, that's the kind of behavior that drives people away. And I'm very lucky to have some amazing friends and people in my life that have like stuck through some really low points for me. And they've given me some semblance of a foundation to rebuild on. And I'm so grateful for their love and support. Whatever the fuck they saw in me that made them stick around, I'm so grateful that they saw it. But yeah, no, I wasn't loving myself. And I like, it's like, what exactly is the advantage to being that way?
Yeah. Of keeping,
yeah. What, like what I, like one of the most powerful things that kind of like epiphanies that I had was that I'm allowing other people's opinions of me to inform my opinion of myself. But what if my opinion of myself is what informs other people's?
yes. Oh, I can't wait to just post that everywhere, man. That's so terrific. So simple yet so poignant and just wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do my best to pour love into other people, right? Like I truly, look, maybe I'm delusional. I'm willing to admit that that's possible, but I think that one of the things that I'm really good at is finding things to love about people and identifying traits and things about people that are lovable and like really latching onto those things. And sometimes it's too much for people for me to be like, hey, I noticed that you're really amazing at this and that and the other thing. And like, I really think that that's wonderful. And they're like, I don't even fucking know you, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that for myself.
Yeah, sometimes the desire and the need to want to do that with other people is actually the opposite, which is the desire and the need and the, you know, the wanting of them to do it for you. So you're, you know, pushing that outwards, hoping to receive it back. And then sometimes people probably just be like, what the fuck? This is, what are you saying that for? And it's too much. And there's a lot of opposites like, yeah, there's a lot of opposites like that, that when you find out more about your value system and kind of what it came from and what's creating your value system, and it can get toxic and messed up pretty fast when you realize that your behaviors can be just looking for self-validation. I am in an entire world of all those things, and just constantly it's pouring over me, you know, the fact that I'm seeking validation or was seeking validation and all those things. And as you know, from a few conversations this year and last year, that we're very much in a similar boat where we're kind of changing very rapidly. And I think, you know, we're a part of everything. We're a part of this big, wonderful one consciousness, and it's happening all over the place. I know that you've spoken about some people in your life that are going through these big changes. And I definitely know my mom, for example, just stopped drinking, and she's been dealing with alcoholism for 15 years. And just now, I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything, but she's just deciding to change. And it's just, oh my God, it makes my heart swell when I talk to her, and I try not to do anything or whatever. I try to just push her forward and let her do her thing. But yeah, it's amazing to see other people reflected. It reminds me of good old Michael Jackson, which might upset some people, but if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. And I believe it. I believe it, Michael. I believe it. So
I love you so much, man.
so I don't know how long I should keep you on here.
I've got about 4 or 5 more hours.
Okay, so I wanted to know, because it's so, and we talked about it at length before. It was such a powerful thing in your life. Are you able to back away from the situation that you know, the robbery situation that really affected you and created anxiety and panic attack, all kinds of shit like that in your life negatively? Are you able to be far enough away from that now and get perspective where you're, you know, maybe happy that it happened because it changed you into this, or it helped you develop into this, or anything like that? I know that can sound strange, but obviously I'm sure that you kind of understand what I mean. These things that happen to us are all kinds of different gifts that we're dealing with in this world, and this experience, and the suffering we go through is there on purpose so that we can, you know, grow and move on. Are you able to kind of look back at it and be like, oh, that, you know, I wouldn't be this way if that hadn't happened? Or are you still like, that guy was a piece of shit and I hope he gets hit by a bus? It's okay if that's the case too.
I'd like to give my mom credit for something that she told me over and over again growing up and as an adult. She always said, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems. And wow, that's always been a really powerful theme for me. So look, there's no bones about it. Like, getting robbed at gunpoint suddenly in your workplace where you are at 60 hours a week is basically your second home. Like, having that security shattered and all of that it's very traumatic. And being confronted with your own mortality at 24 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
It was very scary. It was a very serious thing that happened. I was very surprised that I was not able to respond differently to that.
Okay. Like, in hindsight, there was a lot of thinking about it and thinking that, and probably beating up on yourself that you didn't respond differently. That's something you're kind of saying?
Yeah, no, I was judged every single day or every night when I'm laying in bed, not sleeping. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? This happens every day somewhere in America, and other people don't respond this way. I actually had a shrink ask me that. He's like, you know, Doug, not everybody who has a gun pointed at them has an episode like this. What do you think it is about you that made the, like, I was like, I don't fucking know.
Jeez.
Okay. I had some bad shrinks.
Yeah, there's a couple of them out there.
Yeah. I had one guy fall asleep in the middle of a session.
That's so terrible. Oh my God. I hope that didn't blow up the microphone, but man, that's bad.
Did I blow up the microphone?
No, I said, I hope I didn't with that laugh. Jesus. Okay. That is so incredibly bad.
Yeah, it was awful.
I don't know.
I woke him up immediately. He felt pretty bad.
Yeah, you'd hope so. If he would have played it off, man. There's a bug in my eye and I'm trying to suffocate it.
But yeah, I try to back to your original question of like 1,000-foot view, was that a positive thing? I think, yeah, it was. I think very often the things in life that seem negative as they're happening end up being a positive thing. And I think the vice versa can be true as well. Things that seem really positive right now end up being negative things in the long run when you look back on them. I've had some girlfriends I could say that about.
Yeah.
But no, I think I like the way that I kind of justify these things is I believe that the universe is constantly colluding in my favor and is trying to guide me to a place where I need to be. So when I'm ignoring the pull that the universe is giving me, the signs that the universe is giving me, the things that I'm supposed to be doing, when I'm saying, no, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to manage the staples, I'm going to make bank, And then someday in the future, I'll attend to these things that you have in store for me. Ignoring that for long enough, I think that was the universe giving me a wake-up call. And that was my last day working at Staples. I never went back.
Yeah, that entire worldview and paradigm was shattered in moments, and that's amazing.
Yeah. And by the way, I was also, like, weirdly enough, I was homeless at that time as well.
Christ, wow.
So I was living in my car in the parking lot of the Staples where I was working.
Christ. All right. So in some ways, that guy was a fucking angel coming in there. Might
Yeah,
be
I think so. I think so. And look, it put me through it. And look, nobody likes looking at themselves. Nobody really wants to look.
Yeah.
And when something like this happens, you have to. And there's two ways to respond. You can say, all right, I'm gonna look, I'm gonna see, like, what have I been doing wrong? Like, how did I put myself in this position? How can I rebuild my life? If I feel like my life is crumbled, how can I rebuild it with intention and purpose instead of being the victim of circumstances? Like, great, okay, my fucked up house fell down, I get to build a new one now. And once I started thinking about it that way, I got to get things back on track, and that was ended up being a really positive thing for me in the long run. But it took a while to get there.
Yeah, something that affected me recently within the same kind of vein was that I was reading a book that was mentioning about everything, kind of the big everything happens for a reason, but it was more laid out in a way that was understanding and laced with forgiveness, in that I'm in a place where I'm very hard on myself, and I'm working on a record right now with a guy, and it's probably been like almost every day that he's like reminding me that I'm very hard on myself. But within the marriage that I had and stuff and everything coming out of all that, I realize every day how hard I am on myself. And recognizing or reading about the fact that everything is kind of happening exactly the way it's supposed to kind of takes you back into these experiences, and you recognize that the only reason you were really able to even beat up on yourself and wish that you could have done something different is that you've evolved enough now to look back and be like, oh, I was being my best self, but now I'm better than that self, and able to look back and realize that I could have been better. Does that make sense?
No.
So basically the antithesis of everything is the fact that everybody's doing their best all the time. Everybody's always doing their best. And a lot of times, if you're going to go back and be like, my dad was a piece of shit, or this happened and they were a piece of shit, it's important to try to recognize that everybody was doing their best, including yourself. I go back through the things that happened in the past 17 years of my life with my ex-wife, and I'll beat up on myself for a lot of things. But the only reason I'm able to recognize that I wasn't my best self is because I have evolved, or I'm having trouble explaining this now. Everybody's doing their best, Doug. God damn it. You see Chuckles in the background here. He's doing his best.
Oh, like Chuckles.
He keeps walking around. But everybody's doing their best. And if you go back and beat up on yourself because of something you did, you were doing your best then. And the only reason you're able to process and recognize that is because now you're more evolved than that person, and you wish you could be the person you are now looking back, but you weren't. You were your best version of the self then, and now you're your best self now. So I'll move on from it. Hopefully I explained it in some kind of way that makes sense.
No.
Yeah.
If you're growing, you're going to look back
and yes.
And
good.
I think what you're saying is really important. I completely agree with everything you're saying. It's hard. Not for everybody, but I think it's hard for some people to give themselves the same grace that they give other people.
Yeah,
it is for me, certainly.
One of the things I struggle with is because of my middle school and high school experiences that this talked about was knowing that some of these people that put you through the fucking ringer and that gave you the hardest time were actually some of the most pivotal important people in your lives, in your life. Some of the people that bullied me and that really pressured me and put me through that shit were actually some of the most important people that I've come across, because it fundamentally made me more of who I am. It changed me and really helped to, accelerate my everything. Does this make sense? Similar to your situation,
Yeah.
Whereas everybody would look back and be like, I was a victim and this happened. If you're able to look back and see that that situation was supposed to happen, or maybe that it was a divine interaction of some type, you're able to see it with more light and recognize that it was very important and very, and I said pivotal in your development as a person, as a soul, all that kind of stuff. So I try to look back at those people that did that shit to me and, and recognize that once again, they were important in my development. So that can be very difficult to do, right?
Yeah. And by the way, Robbie, you're a wonderful man who I'm proud to know, with amazing attributes, and you made me feel really important when I needed to feel that. And you've picked up on what I've needed, and you provided me those things. And like, those are skills that you bring to any relationship that are like super valuable to the people that you care about. And sometimes like pain is meant for growth. Like you have to go through those things to evolve the ability to do that, and to have the confidence to like grab somebody by the shirt collars and say, you're fucking up, or like tell somebody to sit down and remind them that they're okay. Like those are things that not everybody is equipped to do, or not always willing to do. And the fact that you are makes you an incredibly valuable human being. So you've been forged in fire, my friend. And here you are, just an amazing human specimen whom I've come to absolutely adore. And I can blab on about how awesome you are forever, but I'm sure as shit grateful that you've lived the life that you have, because I get to reap the benefits of that.
I was hoping to do the same thing and just send all this love back your way, so that I could try to wrap this up and not keep you on here forever. Even though you said you have 4 or 5 hours left, I would love to talk to you more about all this stuff at some point, because just the stories you've shared and the things that you've talked about and the way that you've broken down the information, I think is very, very helpful to other people. I hope that this can reach more people as I continue to do this. Just as I hope that the things that you create continue to help, reach more people and help people to, even if it's just entertainment. I started out just wanting to entertain people, and I didn't want to do this kind of shit where I was, trying to connect with people's deepest emotional centers and things. But at the end of the day, I think that's who I am and what I'm kind of here to do. Anyway, are there any things that you're doing, sir, that you would like to talk about and share? Because I know that there's one film I know that I'm kind of associated with that I'm going to be scoring for you that I'm excited about. But is there anything that you're involved in that you want to talk about?
Before I get into the movies, I want to let you know that after I get off this call,
yeah,
I'm beginning a week-long vow of silence.
Oh,
because I anticipated that I would be absolutely disgusted with myself for all the blabbing that I did, and I'm absolutely right. I regret everything.
Are you serious? Everything you said was so wonderfully put and so helpful for me. And this is like a form of therapy for me. I'm not going to a therapist. I'm not going to somebody to talk to, and to have these outlets and the people in my life, these very few people I have like yourself that I can communicate with on this capacity is so very helpful. So that's really rough to hear, but I hope it does good things
Look,
for you.
I know that it's good. But like I have a tendency to run my mouth. And I know that can be read as like me feeling that I'm self-important. And like, obviously I'm really excited to share what I've learned with people. And I know that that's not always solicited advice. And I need to sometimes learn to shut the fuck up. And so I'm intentionally shutting the fuck up for 7 days starting tomorrow. And I'm going to practice my listening, and I'm going to practice being comfortable with silence. And I'm really, really excited about what that journey will show me along the way. So that's the number one thing that I'm excited about right now. Movies wise, we're always working on stuff, and I'm so lucky to have talented collaborators, not unlike yourself, sir, who are excited to make movies with me for one reason or another. For me, filmmaking is a team sport, and I'm infatuated with humanity, and I've not met a human being that I don't want to get to know better, and who I don't have a desire to understand and telling these stories is really a way for me to explore humanity. So I'm so grateful for that. I'm still getting better at it. I'm still growing. Like, you know, nobody's going to confuse me with Steven Spielberg at this point in my career, but like filmmaking has also given me an incredible reason to continue my personal growth, because I feel like it's important to have a point of view and to uncover some hidden truths about the human condition and the things, the stories that I'm trying to tell. And so Baywatch is a movie that I'm working on right now, starring Ashley Nenny and Damien Maffei, and I'm super fucking pumped about it. I'm editing it as we speak. Things are progressing really well. The talented people that helped make that movie, I literally can and have been moved to tears thinking about how grateful I am for the team of people that I had the privilege of making this movie with. And I'm still living in that world, right? And everybody else is like outside of it. It's kind of cool. Like on a daily basis, I am re-exposed to the culture and the environment of being on set. And I'm the first audience for the film. And how awesome is that?
Yeah.
So that one, hopefully, probably look for it in like 2023, probably, if I'm being honest. It'll be done before then, but by the time we find distribution for it and go through all that stuff.
Yeah.
Where the Scary Things Are will be coming out hopefully later this year. That one was directed by B. Harrison Smith, who's a wonderful collaborator and great friend as well. Working on a screenplay. I'm not writing it. A friend of mine is writing a screenplay right now called Down in the Mouth, which is going to be so good. You're going to love it.
Awesome.
I'm super excited about that one. That'll be the next film I direct, if all goes according to plan. And yeah, there's so many like different stages. Nothing imminent. We're not filming another movie for sure right now. It could all fall apart and I could never make another movie, but I hope, because I love it so much.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope so too. Always nice to hear from you. Always nice to hear about things you're working on. I think you're an inspiring person that, and knowing you is inspiring. And I really do love you, man. I think that you're wonderful, and thank you for doing this.
Thanks for listening to me, Blab. I love you too. This has been great. I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
All right, buddy. Thanks.